What if I told you that one of the most overlooked compact SUVs on the road right now isn't just misunderstood? It's actually one of the most interesting performance hybrids you can buy under $45,000. And the craziest part? Most people are walking right past it without even realizing what it's capable of. Yeah, I'm talking about the Dodge Hornet. Now, before you scroll away thinking this is just another average crossover trying to look sporty but drive like a toaster, give me a minute. Because this one's different, not perfect, not even close, but different in a way that actually matters if you care about how a car feels when you drive it every single day. I've spent a lot of time around SUVs that promise everything and deliver almost nothing. They're efficient, they're practical, they're safe, and they're completely forgettable. The Hornet doesn't fit into that category. And honestly, that's both its biggest strength and its biggest problem. Let's start with the reality that nobody likes to talk about. The Hornet's story isn't clean. It isn't simple. And if you're thinking about buying one, you deserve to know exactly what's going on. Back in early 2026, Dodge confirmed something that caught a lot of people off guard. Production of the standard Hornet was paused, not because the car was failing, not because nobody wanted it, but because of tariffs. The car is built in Italy, sharing its bones with the Alfa Romeo Tonale, and those import costs started to hit hard. That's the kind of thing most flashy reviews won't tell you. But it matters, because it affects pricing, availability, and more importantly, long-term confidence. But here's where things get interesting. Dodge didn't kill the idea, not even close. There are already performance-focused variants in discussion, future platform updates being explored, and internally, this car still represents something the brand doesn't want to lose. A compact SUV that actually feels like a Dodge. So what you're looking at right now isn't just a car sitting on a dealership lot. It's a moment. A weird, slightly uncertain, but potentially very Vigony moment if you understand what you're getting into. Now let's talk about what you actually see when this thing pulls up. Because design is where the Hornet starts to make a serious argument for itself. This doesn't look like a typical compact SUV. It doesn't try to blend in. It doesn't play it safe. The front end is aggressive in a way that feels intentional, not forced. Sharp LED lighting, a wide stance, subtle aerodynamic touches. Everything about it leans toward performance without screaming for attention. And then there's the stance. It sits lower, tighter, more planted than most of its competitors. Where something like the Hyundai Tucson feels soft and slightly overstyled, and the Toyota RAV4 leans into rugged practicality, the Hornet feels focused, like it actually wants to be driven. Step inside and things get even more interesting, because this is where most compact SUVs completely fall apart. Cheap materials, boring layouts, screens that feel like they were added as an afterthought. You've seen it before. The Hornet doesn't do that. You're looking at a fully digital instrument cluster paired with a clean, driver-focused touchscreen setup. Everything is angled slightly toward you, which sounds like a small detail, until you realize how rare that is in this segment. Wireless connectivity is seamless, the interface is responsive, and then there's something you definitely don't expect in a compact SUV at this price point: performance data. Real performance data. You can monitor G-forces, power distribution, hybrid system behavior, even track style metrics that honestly feel like they belong in something far more expensive. And that tells you something important about this car. It's not just pretending to be sporty, it's actually trying to give you tools that make driving more engaging. Now let's talk about what happens when you press the accelerator. Because this is where the Hornet stops being interesting and starts becoming genuinely impressive. The base setup is already strong, turbocharged, responsive, quick enough to feel alive in daily driving. But the real story is the plug-in hybrid version. This is where Dodge did something that almost nobody else in this segment is doing. Instead of building a hybrid that prioritizes efficiency above everything else, they built one that prioritizes torque. Instant, usable, everyday torque. We're talking about a combined output that pushes this compact SUV into performance territory that most competitors simply can't touch. 0 to 60 in the mid 5-second range. And more importantly, acceleration that feels immediate when you need it. Merging onto a highway, overtaking slower traffic, getting out of a tight situation. This thing responds fast. And then there's the feature that sounds like a gimmick until you actually use it. A temporary power boost that gives you an extra hit of performance on demand. It's the kind of thing you expect to ignore, but once you experience it in real driving, you start reaching for it more often than you'd think. At the same time, you still get electric-only driving capability for short distances. Daily commutes, city driving, errands, all handled quietly and efficiently when you want them to be. So you end up with this weird but compelling dual personality. Part efficient hybrid, part performance crossover. And that's something most competitors just don't offer. Look at something like the Ford Escape PHEV. It's efficient, comfortable, and completely unexciting. The Kia Sorento PHEV gives you more space, more refinement, but at a significantly higher price point. And then there's the benchmark everyone brings up in this conversation, the Toyota RAV4 Prime. And yeah, it's solid, very solid, reliable, proven, efficient. But let's be honest for a second. It doesn't make you feel anything when you drive it. The Hornet does, and that matters more than most people think. Now let's talk about the part that usually makes or breaks a buying decision, money. Because this is where things get complicated in a very interesting way. On paper, the pricing structure is competitive. You're getting performance numbers and features that punch above the segment, but that's not the real story right now. The real story is what's happening on dealership lots. Inventory exists, and because of the production pause and market uncertainty, dealers are motivated, which means discounts, real discounts, not the fake kind you see in ads. Actual price reductions that can make this car significantly more affordable than it should be based on what it offers. And that creates an opportunity, but also a question, because when something looks like a good deal, you have to ask why, and this is where we need to have a very honest conversation. Ownership. Because everything up to this point sounds great. Performance, design, pricing, features. It's easy to get excited, but long-term ownership is where the Hornet starts to show its weaknesses, and ignoring that would be a mistake. The hybrid system is complex, more complex than what you'll find in something like a Toyota, and complexity introduces risk. There have been real reports from owners dealing with electrical issues, warning lights that don't always have clear causes. Situations where cars go back to dealerships multiple times for the same problem. That doesn't mean every unit is unreliable, not at all. But it does mean there's a higher level of uncertainty compared to more established hybrid systems. And if you're the kind of buyer who wants something that just works every single day without surprises, that's something you need to think about very carefully. Insurance costs are also higher than average for this segment, not dramatically, but enough to matter over time. And then there's depreciation. Because when a car has an uncertain production future and a mixed reliability perception, resale value becomes a question mark, not a deal breaker, but definitely a factor. So now you're standing at a crossroads. On one side, you have a car that is genuinely exciting to drive, unique in its segment, packed with features that feel premium, and available right now at a price that makes it very tempting. On the other side, you have risk. Not extreme risk, but enough to require a different mindset as a buyer. And this is where the decision becomes personal. If you're someone who values driving feel, performance, and getting something that stands out from the sea of identical crossovers, this car makes a very strong case for itself. If you're planning to keep your vehicle for 3 to 4 years, take advantage of current pricing, and you're comfortable with the idea of managing potential issues with warranty coverage, this becomes a very interesting buy. But if your priority is long-term reliability, minimal hassle, predictable ownership costs, and strong resale value, then honestly, you're probably better off with something safer, something more proven. And there's no shame in that, because at the end of the day, the best car isn't the one with the best specs. It's the one that fits your life. What makes the Hornet so fascinating is that it doesn't try to be perfect. It tries to be engaging. In a market full of vehicles designed to check boxes and satisfy algorithms, this one still feels like it was built by people who care about how driving feels. And that's rare. But it comes with trade-offs. Real ones. So here's the simplest way to think about it. If you want safe, predictable, and proven, you already know where to look. If you want something that actually makes your daily drive a little more interesting, something that gives you performance without completely sacrificing practicality, then the Hornet might be exactly what you didn't realize you were looking for. Just go in with your eyes open, because this isn't a perfect car, it's a compelling one. And sometimes that's even better. Drive smart.